Hey everyone, this is Dave here with a look at Steep on consoles. So this game's been out for a while now, but we were rather interested in covering it, especially since this was one of the first titles by Ubisoft that was announced to have PlayStation 4 Pro support. So we wanted to see what kind of upgrades PS4 Pro owners would be getting, and how the standard consoles, PS4 and Xbox One, stacked up in comparison. Now in terms of the base consoles, we're looking at a pretty standard setup here. The game targets 30 frames per second, and in terms of the resolution, runs at native 1080p on PS4 and 900p on Xbox One. And as you'd expect, image quality is reasonably similar between the two, with the game taking on a slightly fuzzier appearance on Xbox One. It's not a major difference though, and from a regular viewing distance, the presentation generally holds up pretty well on Xbox One. Other aspects of the game's visual pipeline are also closely matched too, so the core assets such as textures, geometry and effects work are pretty much identical across both platforms, although we do see a difference in shadow quality. In this case, these elements are rendered at slightly higher resolution on PS4, although in gameplay the difference isn't all that visible. Looking closely though, and we can see how these elements appear smoother and more refined on the Sony platform. So generally the visual experience is pretty similar across the baseline consoles, with the PS4 just getting a little extra refinement. But what about the game when running on PS4 Pro? Well, Ubisoft were kind of light-lipped as to what kind of improvements we'd be getting, and when first booting the game up in the 4K mode, the results weren't exactly great. The game doesn't actually feature a resolution boost, instead we're looking at a native 1080p presentation just like on the base PS4, albeit upscaled to 4K if you're outputting that resolution on the Pro. Similarly, the actual visual quality in terms of effects work, texture details, all of that is an exact match with the base PS4 game. Switch the PlayStation 4 Pro over to 1080p and you're looking at an identical image to the base console. So where is this PS4 Pro improvement actually coming from? Well, it's in the form of performance. On the baseline consoles the game targets 30 frames per second, but on the Pro frame rates are running uncapped. Now the game doesn't quite hit 60 frames per second, but instead spends most of its time around 50 FPS. This does lead to a visibly smoother experience than on the base PS4 console. After all, we're looking at a higher frame rate, so we get improved motion handling, and controller response also feels crisper. However, as frame rates aren't consistent, then the experience, well, it can feel somewhat variable. There are noticeable stutters during lateral movement, so when panning the camera or shifting from left to right. So the situation isn't ideal, even though we do get a welcome boost in frame rates when running on the Pro, but unfortunately there is no option to change the given performance profile. In this respect, I actually feel that providing the users two distinct modes would have been a better choice. One, to have the game operate as it does now, rendering natively at 1080p but with an unlocked higher frame rate, and a second option where resolution is given a tangible boost over 1080p while frame rates remain capped at 30 FPS. The fact that there's no user selectability at all in Steep suggests that Pro support perhaps was almost an afterthought in this case, almost like the developer simply switched on the PS4 Pro flag, selecting an uncapped frame rate and using the extra headroom of the GPU to deliver this performance uptick. It is somewhat disappointing in this respect, even if frame rates are higher than the base PS4 game. However, in terms of delivering the most consistent experience, that falls to the Xbox One version. Note that both consoles run at a locked 30 frames per second, but in practice the experience is actually slightly smoother on Xbox One. Take a close look at the frame time graphs and you'll notice improper frame pacing appearing on PS4, generating pockets of stutter where frames are being rendered both more quickly and slower than the desired 33.33 milliseconds required for a 30 frames per second update. As a result, it can feel like the game is dropping frames even when it isn't, due to this incorrect frame cadence. And in this respect, the Xbox One provides a smoother experience overall. In fact, it's a perfect 30 FPS run throughout. Hopefully we'll see Ubisoft deploy a patch to fix the frame pacing issues on PS4, but what we'd really like to see are some user selectable modes when running on PS4 Pro, either a dedicated higher resolution mode, or perhaps even the ability to cap the game at 30 FPS just so we can get a completely smooth experience. Either way, more work definitely needs to be done here. This is a premium console and you'd expect a premium experience, and while we are getting an improvement with Steep, there is definitely a sense that, well, perhaps more could have been done here. Anyway, I think that about wraps it up. Don't forget to give us a like or subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.